This week on the show, everybody gets new uniforms.
They were the heroes from the future. Teenagers protecting the universe from those that would sow the seeds of chaos. Each had unique powers and abilities. And though they often had their differences, they came together to save the day as the Legion of Superheroes. Now, you can be a part of their adventures and learn the history of the future in the Legion Clubhouse.
All right, we are looking at Legion of Superheroes, Volume 3, number 54 this week. Strength in numbers. Paul Levitz, Keith Giffen on the writing, Keith Giffen and Mike DeCarlo on the art, and it is indeed New Uniform Day. And, I mean, lots of pockets. I mean, we are starting to see the introductions of pockets and puffy vests in uniforms. Yes. And I think it's in the next issue where we see Block starting to take his final form as a Jim Lee character. So, I mean, we are starting to brush right into that time period where the Image Comics kids are going to go to the next level. And we can blame Giffen and DeCarlo for that, I think.
I think we honestly can. I've always said that where goes the Legion goes the rest of comics. Because when you really think about it, this is very early for the belts and buckles and leather jackets era. This is about where it starts, 87, 88. And then by mid-90, everybody, all of the Avengers have a leather jacket. And so we really are seeing the beginning of kind of that change. But I feel like there's going to be another, 10 episodes of these suits. And I want to say it now, and I'm going to say it once. I do not like any of these new suits. I do not like a single one of them. And that is the only time I'm going to say it, because I'm not going to, spend 10 episodes complaining.
Well, we don't have 10 episodes. We've only got 5 episodes before we hit 5 years later.
Right.
So we've got that to look forward to as well. I guess, I don't know. There is nothing overly exciting about this except we can kind of point to, so the Matthew says, as go the Legion, so goes industry. The actual phrase is, so goes porn, so goes the rest of the industry, because no, seriously, the porn industry is very instrumental in adopting, or was for the longest time, adopting new technology. So when we made the switch from film to video, it was the porn industry that was taking advantage of that. And as new different technologies emerge, specifically for film and video, you saw the porn industry jump on that first. And so, and then everybody else would follow after that. Oh, if VHS works, or, beta works, or whatever, that's how it would go. So that's kind of, if people want to kind of know an origin of that phrase, there you go right there. It goes into the late 70s, early 80s adult film industry, and how it infected the rest of media going forward.
I think it's taken, and that's taken from either Sir Thomas More or one of the guys on the top of a pole.
It's the adult film industry.
Where go England, there goeth the world.
Yeah.
And
and look at England. What have they done? Bah. I don't really have a lot to say about the costumes, except that there is nothing that really stands out. I think if we look at Bouncing Boy's costume, and maybe everybody's jackets, at least with the high collars, we can see a lot of influence from Blade Runner in this, where they have those kinds of collars working and those kind of jackets working. We certainly haven't hit the duster phase yet, but that's coming as well, not too far down the line. But yeah, we see we saw Mobius influence before. Now I think with Blade Runner definitely out on VHS at this point, that we are seeing some Blade Runner influences, at least in the high collars, protecting people and the multiple layers that people are wearing. But I don't know, things are starting to also shift a little bit more militaristic in the clothing.
Yeah.
So again, if you look at Polar Boy, he's got the heavy glove gauntlets and the tactical jacket. We see the same thing with Colossal Boy. We see the same thing to an extent with Bouncing Boy and Siobhan Aaron and others, and in fact, especially with the Science Police, where they are kind of really decked out in some Judge Dredd 2000 AD type stuff.
Right.
So we're really starting to see a shift from peacekeeping corps to militaristic,
paramilitary, almost fascist kind of
private army kind of stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it is interesting to see that. And I do feel like in a lot of very real ways, this issue is kind of the beginning of the 5-year gap Legion, because this is really where the tone and the visual take that starts out that Legion hits for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And as such, it's kind of interesting, but it also makes a couple of decisions that I feel are problematic in that by making all of the costumes, quote unquote, more realistic, more useful, more, pockets and protection and coats and ways that make it feel like it's more naturalistic and more, I don't know what's the best word for it, but it also really underlines the fact that for many, many years, comics have not had anything like real textures or real clothing
So I was going to say part of that is because there's an economy that goes on. You have a certain number of pages to write or draw in a page or in a day, and so you've got to get through that. So if you look again in the early Legion days, yes, you have detail, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that there was no detail, but you had smoother lines, faster lines, fewer lines because you had to work fast and you had to get stuff out because it's comic books. Once Frank Miller and Jansen, right? That's his name. Got together.
Klaus Janson
got together on Dark Knight, and we see all of the detail, the folds of the fabric, the aging of the skin, the lines on people's faces. Then suddenly everybody starts to make that switch as well, saying, "Oh, well, we need to have fabrics have folds. Why wouldn't we have fabrics that have folds on everything?" And so now you start to slow things down for the artist to where maybe before they were able to do 10 pages a day, now maybe they're only able to do 3 pages a day because the amount of detail that is, I guess, expected. Although I would argue that today, if you returned to a classic style, like the Dan Parrott art over at Archie Comics, I think that I think many people would probably be okay with that. They may say that it looks simplistic, but I think most people would be all right with fewer details if it meant comics came out on time. And number two, if that could, I don't think we're going to bring the cost of comics down because I think artists deserve page rates higher than what they're getting right now. But I think people would be okay with fewer details. But maybe it's because of the current cost of comics. That's how they justify it, because we're spending all this time doing all these little bits and bobs and lines and folds and stuff.
Right. I can definitely see that. And, it is interesting to see this and have that in 1988, that very novel, hey, these are like real costumes. These are protective. These are useful. These are, they can have their weapons. They can have pockets that are filled with things. They can have, I don't know, their Omnicom, whatever you want to have.
Yeah.
But then you also have to ask yourself the important question. Halfway through this issue, Timberwolf says, "These stupid new suits are confusing and they make me itch." Now, I feel like if I'm going to roll out a big change like this, and this
I would have had Ultra
change,
Boy say that.
Well, I wouldn't have had anybody say that. You don't call it out something like that. You don't preemptively. I don't feel like you do, though. I feel like it may have been a thought process of let's get ahead of this, but what it really comes out is me agreeing, yeah, Timberwolf, you're right. The suits are stupid, especially yours, which seems to have bear claws on your shoulders for some reason.
Yeah.
But I also feel like there's a change in tone in this issue that's kind of interesting because, as you said, we're seeing more of a paramilitary Legion, and the loss of Mon-El, the loss of Brainiac 5, the loss of Dream Girl as an active member has really changed.
And the cores, the core members as well are all retired or off doing things. Bouncing Boy, Triplicate Girl, Single Lass or whatever she's going to call herself now. Single lady. So that way when
lady. That's beautiful.
Yeah, that's what she should be called, single lady.
Solo girl, whatever you want to call her.
Yeah.
Actually, don't ever Google that. But I think the upshot of it is it does all of a sudden hit you with, this is a new new era of the Legion.
Mm-hmm.
And the breakout from Labyrinth, where all of the villains are now kept since Takran Geltos was blown up, is brutal and messy and bloody and explosive in a way that you kind of understand why the science police are all of a sudden dressed like, Judge Dredd, busting heads in their big leather jackets, because we're seeing murderous, evil villains out to hurt and kill people.
Mm-hmm.
We see science police officers getting bloodied and beaten, and Legion screaming, just kill them all and start nuking people with his laser powers, which, don't get me wrong, I don't like that, but it does change that feel of things. And we do see Polar Boy making a decision that ends up being smart. Because when he hears about the breakout, he hears about the prison, he sends Wildfire, Ultra Boy, and Dawnstar, who can get there fast.
Yeah.
And then he sends a full cruiser full of other people to back them up. And so he hits them quickly with the blitz, and then he comes in with the backfield and, picks up the stragglers. It's a really smart move, comic book strategy wise.
I mean, it's a good strategy. I mean, it's Matthew, it's not called the Blitzkrieg for nothing. And of course, by the Blitzkrieg, I'm talking about the song, the Blitzkrieg Bop, not anything else that has to do with fascists. So there you go. The other thing, well, yes, Polar Boy is making some smart moves, but I think everyone else seems to be overly preoccupied with themselves. And so while they do kind of function as a team, we're functioning as a team because we have to, not because we like hanging around with one another and doing good. Do you get that feeling? And again, that's part of this downfall that we're talking about. Agreed.
And that is, I don't know if I'd say that's new, because there's always been some level of,
cliquishness, sure.
Yeah, but I mean, the grinding, the point where Wildfire and Dawnstar are on a mission together, and they're both complaining about having to work with the other. And Shadow Lass keeps, refusing Polar Boy's call. It's interesting that, that has also become part of quote unquote adult storytelling, is these characters can't cooperate, can't coordinate, won't work together. And I feel like that's the exact opposite of adult life for me, because I work with people I don't like. And at no point will you ever hear me say, I'm sorry, I don't like this person, or hear me tell somebody.
You say that to my face every week.
Well, you and I have been friends for 30 freaking years, Stephen. I can be mean to you because you've been mean to me for a decade.
I'm never mean to Matthew. Matthew is the kindest, gentlest, warmest person I've ever known. Now, excuse me, I've got to go play with my deck of cards.
You sure it's not 2 steel balls there, Captain Queeg?
Okay. So Legion, listen, I'm not opposed to the random crazy just showing up and being crazy to advance a plot point. But I will say that Legion just showing up, was it last issue or 2 issues ago? And he's like, I'm crazy. I'm going to destroy things. And the Legion are like, okay, you're going to maximum security so that we can get to this story point of freeing Emerald Empress, is a little bit, I don't know. I think that's stretching it maybe a bit too much. Again, I'm not opposed to the random crazy, but this guy pushes my disbelief a little bit.
Now, Legion is one of Block's old teammates from the League of Super Assassins back in the 250s. Yeah.
Okay.
And Legion was part of the Legion of Supervillains at the beginning of this version. But yeah, we haven't seen Legion in 40 odd issues.
Yeah.
So I think, he hasn't necessarily been crazy. I'm going to, murder everybody and just microwave everybody in the entire room. Although he was part of a team that called themselves the Super Assassins.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's possible.
Yeah. I'm also curious why Censor Girl isn't sent to participate in this. She has the ability to project things. She can project an entire army of science police to get these guys to stop what they're doing. I don't understand why she decided to sideline herself.
I think she doesn't want to. She's like, what I perceive happening on Labyrinth.
And how does she perceive things? I mean, she seems to almost, I wonder, because as I'm reading this issue, and because of the horrible hair both she and Dream Girl have, do you think that the writers confuse their own characters? Because there are times when Censor Girl acts like Dream Girl, as far as if what I am sensing or what I'm thinking is, or what I know is going to happen is going to happen. I'm just like, that's something Dream Girl would say. That's not something that Censor Girl or Princess Projector would say.
Well, Censor Girl does have magical long range sensors.
No, but there are times. There are times in here where she's like talking about like she's predicting the future, or that's the way it comes off, and it's like, okay, same white ratty nasty hair that looks terrible as an art style. I think you got your characters confused, and it's possible that I've got the characters confused, but the things that she says throughout the issue are just a little off and do not come across as either Princess Projectra or Censor Girl.
She has long range X-ray vision. We established that when they were pretending she was Supergirl. So I think the implication is that she's seeing and somehow sensing with her sensor power.
Here's what she says on the last page. I knew it would happen whether I was there or not. It was foreordained. That's something that Dream Girl would say. It was foreordained, Shug. I saw it.
Remember, she's from the planet of wizards and warriors. So, and they really are sort of leaning heavily into not just. Do you remember when she said to Brainiac, "You're from one of the fine noble families of Kolu"? I think they're trying to lean into her as this weird kind of
noblesse oblige. That's great for the White Witch, but not for Censor Girl.
The White Witch is Dream Girl's sister.
I know, but it's better for her because she's weird and just weird top to bottom.
But she's not here.
Exactly. Where is she?
Somebody else.
I wonder if we'll find out what happens to the White Witch. And we also haven't checked in with Block in a while. I wonder if perhaps we'll find that answer sometime soon. Also, I'm curious that Element Lad's solution to quelling the riot is, I'm just going to suffocate all of you.
No, he gives them air. He's just like, I'm going to put you in this little ball and I'm going to give you air and let me know if you need something other than air, but I'm also not going to let you kill me. And it is kind of the beginning of what we will see after the 5-year gap of a very pacifist, non-aggressive Element Lad who will let you kill yourself. Yeah. Absolutely. He will not stop you from killing yourself. He will just not kill you. Now, he might put you in a razor sharp ball where if you jump up and down.
Yeah, I have rubber bullets, I promise. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Also, I guess the final question that I have for this week, is this the left eye or the right eye of Ekron? I've always wondered that.
So it looks like Mon-El lost an eye in this issue too, because he had Shadow Lasser there, and it looks like he's missing an eye. I don't know. Oh, and speaking of eyes, Vizilad gets lines in this issue. Vizilad, of course, known for having multiple eyes that have different eye functions. So maybe it's just the whole issue is all about eyes leading us up to the return. That's interesting. That's a good call. Yeah, by the way, I'm never ever going to talk about the other eye of Ekron.
You should,
or the Emerald Head of Ekron. I'm not going to.
It's great. If you want to talk about how companies rip each other off, Ekron would definitely be, if he was in the Marvel universe, he would be a Celestial. Okay, so and then White Witch would definitely be Mantis, and I could just keep going. Block is the thing. So let's take a break right here. This issue was just fine. There wasn't anything super outstanding except for the growing dread. And of course, as a kid of the 80s, the interactions probably would not have stood out as much, and the dysfunction probably would not have stood out as much as it does today, because back in the 80s, we were all, I don't care, you could say my family was great. No, we were all in dysfunctional families because we were all waiting for the bombs to fall on our heads. And so we were all in this sense of woe and dread. So seeing the Legion kind of reflect that is not too far out of the ordinary today it's kind of a downer issue, but I think back then it would have seemed probably normal, or maybe it's great that they're trying to bring modern sensibilities into the story. But I don't think there's anything that really jumps out in this issue as stand out.
I feel like it is forward thinking. It is ahead of the game for 1988, but it's just far enough ahead that in 2024, it feels like standard issue. It feels like, hey, this is almost old fashioned.
Yeah.
Because we're really leaning into the adult bits of storytelling. And that is cool. And I do appreciate that more adult tone, especially in a team like this. I just feel like the Timberwolf comment, sometimes when you call things out too much, it makes it worse than if you don't explain it at all.
Mm. Also, we have much more therapy today, so there's that.
Yeah. By the way, you've known me since 1988. Have I ever said, oh, yeah, my family was perfectly normal? No.
No, I'm saying our listeners, if you think your family is perfectly normal, dig a little deeper. I'm sure you'll find things that will make you want to go, hey, going to seek therapy is good for you. I give that a big thumbs up. I don't know when Mental Health Month is, but every month should be mental health. Last week, I had a chance to talk with Alex Segura, who is a comic book writer, a book writer. He's worked on Star Wars. He's worked on Spider-Man. He does a lot of mystery stuff. He's done stuff for DC. And during our conversation that you can listen to the full interview over at majorspoilers.com on our podcast, the Major Spoilers Podcast, issue number 1119, if you want to get that far deep into it. Yes, we've been doing that show for a very long time. At one point in the conversation, Alex and I started talking about Legion of Superheroes, and he is reading the Legion right around the same time that we are talking about in this week's show. In fact, he was talking specifically about the 5-year later run. And I decided to pull that little clip, a little quick 5-minute excerpt about some Legion of Superheroes thoughts. And I want to share it with you right here. This is exclusive. You can't find this conversation anywhere else. Here's a question that you can just say no comment if you like. Are you getting ready to work on a Legion of Superheroes book or comic?
Oh, I'm not. I mean, I wish I was.
All right. Because sometimes people say things like, hey, I'm diving back into Legion of Superheroes to read this. And I'm like, there's only one reason why you would really want to dive back into that.
I wish. Story. I would love that. I would truly love that. I mean, in that, like, I'm sure, I don't know if you read that Substack post I put up where,
I did.
Okay. So basically, the long and short of it was I had never found entree into the Legion of Superheroes lore. Mm-hmm. You know, I read Paul's Great Darkness Saga, which I loved, and there were great stories, but for whatever reason, I just thought the ship had sailed. And then I got into Giffen's 5-year later stuff, which was just a revelation in like serialized storytelling, you know, just like one of these game changer stories that I would suggest to anyone to read. So yeah, that's just been my entertainment reading. And obviously as a writer, you jot down your ideas and you're like, if I ever get that shot, like I would love to do it. And I obviously have some ideas if that ever comes to pass, but nothing official is in the offing.
Okay. I was just curious because you mentioned that and I was like, oh, interesting. Because usually when people say they're doing a deep dive on something that's, 40 years old, there's a reason for that. But
when I was posting about reading every Daredevil issue, there was a reason. But
Yeah, we are about to get into the 5-year Legion run on our other podcast, Legion Clubhouse.
I'll have to tune in.
We have read every single Legion issue ever released so far. We're doing it just chronologically.
Oh, if you ever want to guess, like, do you ever have people over? Or?
Yeah, sometimes we do. Yeah, I used to do a bunch of interviews, and then I got into my whole, imposter syndrome stuff of why am I interviewing important people like Alex, and so I just stopped doing it. But yeah, I interviewed one of the very first episodes, the Otto Bender biographer, to talk about that story. So that was interesting.
Oh, was it Bill Shelley or?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think it was Bill Shelley. Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Who wrote the book? We've had others. I'm waiting to get into the new the Legion reboot so I can get the Moy brothers on to talk. But yeah,
nice.
I'm going to come on sometime during 5 year later and talk about that. Definitely.
Oh, I would love to. Yeah, please. Okay. definitely take me up on that. And I would love to talk about Keith's stuff and even the dynamic between Keith and the beer bombs. And now I'm in my read, I'm at the tail end where Tom and Mary have Giffen has long left. Tom and Mary have stepped away. Mm-hmm. And now Tom McCraw, who was the colorist of the original 5 Year Later run, is stepping in as the writer. And just kind of like the last gasp of the the main canon Legion.
I have theories. I'm a firm believer that they should have done the 5 Year Later right as soon as Crisis was over, just because of the way it kind of messed with. There was some messing with continuity that I'm not a fan of with Crisis and how it impacted the Legion and Time Trapper and all of that stuff.
I mean the whole pocket universe thing that Paul did at the end. I mean, it's like one of those fly by the seat of your pants things that you have to come up with to affirm decades of canon. Like Superboy is integral to the Legion, so if you suddenly say there was never a Superboy, what does that do to the Legion? And then I guess later Giffen having to deal with just no mention of the Superman lore, like including Supergirl. Mm-hmm. I think it's hard, and it's really a testament to like serialized comics publishing and like what it's like working in the trenches, because I feel like the solution Giffen came up with, now we're turning this into the Legion podcast, but I feel like the solution Giffen came up with like Mon-El as like the stand-in for Superboy and introducing Laurel Gand, who I love and I think is a great character.
Yeah.
It was the best case scenario, but I think at its root, that's when the Jenga thing started to fall. Like they pulled out this very key piece, and the whole thing is not going to stand after that.
Do you think that would have been different? I mean, I don't know how things were back in the 70s and 80s, but today, hey, we're getting together to plot out our next year of stuff. We're having our big creators retreat. They probably weren't doing that back then. So I wonder if some of those problems would have been mitigated, or if this was all John Byrne's fault.
I don't even know if it. I mean, Byrne was the one who pushed for no Superboy based on what I've read, but I think the idea of like no Superman lore whatsoever was more just an office politics thing. Like the Superman office was being territorial. I mean, that's just based on like interviews I've read. I wasn't there. Yeah. I wouldn't be there for 20 more years, but I don't know if it could have been avoided. I mean, these things happen with any kind of like long form serialized stories. Like things are just going to get complicated, and I do believe that there's like the affection for the Legion is really tied to that connection to Superboy, though. So I think like, how do you recapture that? That's the challenge.
Mm-hmm. I want to thank Alex for taking the time last week to sit down and talk with me. Again, you can listen to the entire interview that I did with Alex Segura. We talked mostly about mysteries, detective genre, how that translates into various mediums. You can listen to that on this week's Major Spoilers podcast, episode 1119. And we've got him on record. Alex is ready to come back and talk 5 years later when we get to it. And the 5 Year Later line is just around the corner.
If you enjoy the show, we would appreciate your support. You can find out more and become a Legion Clubhouse member at patreon.com/Major Spoilers.
All right, now we're going to find out what happens in issue number 55, different paths. We're going to find all the different paths that people have walked down since their departure from the Legion.
How many?
The answer is 42.
42. Legionnaire.
42, by the way. Oh, and if you caught that Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy reference, we are just about at the end of March, which means the Major Spoilers Book Club. We're going to be discussing the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy over on our Patreon page, patreon.com/Major Spoilers. The Book Club podcast is absolutely free. You can just go and sign up at patreon.com/Major Spoilers as a free member. And you can join in the discussion on our Discord, also free to join. And then listen, I think this month it's Brad and I talking about the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. But 42 plays a big role in that book. I've got my copy from this is a 1981 copy sitting right here. This is the 20th printing, October 1981. So that is when I read this as a kid.
Does it have the green alien giving you the finger on the cover?
No, this is the planet sticking its tongue out and fingers on the ears, and then the big thumb on the cover. It's the blue cover that most people know for the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Which, hey, I know the listeners are like, why are you guys talking about Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? Because it's probably more interesting than talking about this issue, to be fair.
That is absolutely not true. This is a very solid, hey, what did we miss issue? And honestly, when you really break it down, the fact that it has 4 different creative teams is almost entirely
creative teams in the sense of different artists. Each story has a different artist. Levitz and Giffen are still the writers on the stories.
4 different art teams then.
Yeah.
It really does feel like hey, let's keep Keith on schedule. So yeah, but I feel like this is the issue that I think a couple of issues ago I was complaining, hey, everybody's going someplace. They're all wandering away. What are they doing? Why does everybody seem to be disappearing and then just not showing up again? This is the issue that kind of gives us that checkup of where are these Legionnaires who haven't quit, but just kind of wandered off.
Who's doing the art for the White Witch story? Because that's the one that I like the least.
That's Ernie Cologne.
Yeah, that's the one I like the least as far as the art.
You have yet to enjoy an Ernie Cologne story.
No, I really don't. We were just talking about simplistic art. His is simplistic and weird. His art in this issue would have been great in like 1977, like right as Dungeons and Dragons is dropping for the first time. This is the art that would be great there. But here in the 80s, it feels dated.
Well, and to some degree, what we're seeing here is Ernie doing a riff on what he did with Amethyst, Lord of the Gems, or what is it, Princess of the Gem World.
The Gem World, yeah.
Because they are, I don't know if they've made it explicit yet, but they are making the connection that Xerox, the Sorcerer's World, is the Gem World.
Is the Gem World, yeah. I've heard that before, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't hate it.
You don't hate the art, or you don't hate this story?
I don't hate this issue at all. I don't hate Ernie's art, but the thing about Cologne, especially, this is about the same time that he did his Marvel graphic novel Axe, which I don't know if you've seen it, has a lot in common with like Lord of the Rings and Hobbits.
Yeah, that's why I said this is perfect for fantasy stuff. That's why it fits for Sorcerer's World, but it just feels out of place when we're talking about the 30th century.
And I hope that that's intentional, because the White Witch, as this powerful magician girl in the middle of the Legion, is like thumbsticky outiness. It's like for a while the Avengers had the Two-Gun Kid running around with them. So it's like the Sentinel of Liberty and Iron Man and Thor and a cowboy. And he's just like, yip-de-dip-de-doo. Hi, hey, I'm a cowboy. Howdy, howdy, howdy. So I do like the fact that it does set off her weirdness and her alienness, and the fact that strange things happen on the Gem World. And of course, the weird looking guy who has that little bird for
an eyeball,
familiar, and the bird. Yeah, that's a great scene. Just that whole thing.
I like that panel, but I just don't like this whole sequence, because at the end of it, it's like, I'm the White Witch and I'm torn. And that's it. That's all it is. It's like, I'm torn. I didn't need a whole 5 pages or whatever it is of this story to get to the point where I'm torn between what I should do.
They've given her a familiar, or an apprentice in this case. And if I'm not mistaken, Harlack is the first Kund we've ever met who isn't just a slavering, cannibalistic murder falcon. So I do like that. Granted, he's small and he's very, very alien among his own people. Yeah. And having him run away to be a sorcerer is kind of neat. I like that. It's like if we just met the first Klingon accountant.
Yeah. I like the second story better, when we check in on what's going on on Kulo. Because Brainiac is back, man. He's back to take the reins as one of the high rulers of the planet. And he's going to sit down. He's going to get some real science done with real technology, real science people all around him. Time enough at last to do what I want. Oh, no. We have outlawed all research into time travel. This is a perfect Twilight Zone episode. If you haven't seen the Time Enough at Last episode, this feels like that in Brainiac form, where he is forbidden from looking into time travel because of the things that have gone wrong. And his argument is, yeah, but we have a chance to actually correct things now that the time trapper is gone. And they're like, no. And then we will monitor you to make sure that you're not doing anything. And he's like, you can't monitor my mind. Dun, dun, dun. I like this story a lot. And who's the artist on this one? Is this Erik Larsen?
Yeah.
Oh, this is Keith. Oh, that's right. This one is Keith Giffen. You can tell because everyone is so dang thick. And I say thick with 2 C's at the end. Because holy
big
crap.
Square heads.
Yes, everybody has
got a
big
jaw
and square.
you can cut glass with.
It is just no, I wouldn't say cut glass. I would say he's got a jaw that you could break rocks with. But holy crap, everyone is thick in this story. It is weird.
It's kind of
but I dig it. I dig it. I like this story.
And it is a look into Kolu or Yad Kolu, whatever you want to call Brainiac's homeworld. But
Kulo.
It's in Kolu. It's not Kulo. Yeah. That's a very rude word.
Is it? I wouldn't know. That's why they put Brainiac on that planet, because he's probably close to that.
But it is, it's a look into Kolu that we've never seen before, because we do see the high bodybuilder of Kolu. Yeah. And then, of course, the girl who is very clearly the milkmaid. So I believe there are 4 castes that run Kolu. There's the bodybuilders, the milkmaids, there's Brainiac's cast, who are the Brainiacs, and then apparently there's Green Mahatma Gandhi, who shows up to tell him, no, you may not ever go against the collective wisdom.
Yeah, put some spectacles on him, and he's going to look exactly like the character from the Twilight Zone.
You see, he does not look anything like Burgess Meredith, who played the Penguin.
If you put the glasses on him, he will.
Stephen Francis Schleicher. I have seen every episode of the Twilight Zone dozens of times. He looks nothing like Burgess Meredith.
That's because Burgess Meredith didn't paint himself green and shave his head.
Burgess Meredith also does not have a jaw you could cut glass with.
No, not cut glass.
You know who he looks like?
You could look. This guy is probably somebody that could open up a stuck pickle jar with that chin. Just bang it on his chin.
This guy looks like Wilfred Brimley if he shaved his head and shaved off his mustache and lost 50 pounds and just was like, diabetes.
Diabetes.
Yeah, exactly.
Time travel. No time travel. No time travel.
I ran out of vanilla ice cream and I struck my wife, and then somebody told me wife's been dead for 15 years.
So
who did I hit?
I like this story. But then that's followed by a story that who cares? Except for the art. This is Jose Luis Garcia-Lopez doing this one, right? You can kind of tell from his stuff. So the art is really good. We get to see the clash of the Bohunks in this story, where Atmos and Starboy are trying to see who has the biggest Legion power, I guess, and which one can swing their Legion power around
who has
the
biggest mohawk and or beard.
Yeah. But we've already established that Dream Girl is just doing whatever Dream Girl does. And again, who cares?
See, this story does establish, though, that she is very confused. She's like, I'm making a mistake. I don't know why I'm doing this. Why am I here?
I get self-sabotage. I get self-sabotage. I've done it myself many times.
There's more going on. There's some secret.
Yeah, but I don't care. I don't care. Unless it's going to come back. Yeah, I really don't. At least her hair looks a little better. At least her hair looks a little better in this issue. Also, it's nice to see that Dungeon Master makes an appearance in this issue as well. So that's good.
This is the only time I have ever looked at the ridiculousness of Atmos and gone, he does look kind of cool.
Yeah, but that's because it's Garcia-Lopez on the art.
Garcia-Lopez, I know, but transparent underarms is just like the dumbest superpower ever. And Garcia-Lopez makes it look like, oh man, this guy should be the new Superman.
Yeah. He had his ribs removed. Those aren't transparent underarms. He's had a few ribs removed. And then finally, we get to check on Block, and this is the art by Erik Larsen, I'm guessing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or is this Al Gordon?
This is Erik Larsen.
Oh, yeah. This is where Block finally gets his Jim Lee transformation.
There is no phrase in the English language that will chill my blood faster than Erik Larsen's Block.
Well, considering what Erik Larsen is doing right now in Savage Dragon, it kind of makes sense that Block doesn't realize that he's been kidnapped by a pederast who's thrown him in the back of a white van that says free candy on the outside. Because no matter what happens in this issue, that is what is going on. This person has kidnapped a child and is holding them against their will to get them to do quote unquote something for them in exchange for quote unquote something else. And it's just got a creep factor top to bottom on this, especially when the little blue guy is working for someone else who's clearly an allegory for Satan. And this is just the satanic panic in comic book form.
We do see the beginnings of Block's shoulder ridges, which are a short-lived kind of ridiculous bit. But I do like this issue's kind of, what is the word I'm looking for? Sort of the evolution of the Block look, because we've seen Block, and they actually show us flashback when he had his neck ridge, when he had his nose, we see the various iterations. And we see bits and pieces. And of course, we come to a point where not too far down the line, those big shoulder ridges are going to go full on Jim Lee. And you're absolutely right. That is what this is. This is a proto-Image comic story. And that's a good thing if you love Image comics. And that's a bad thing if you don't love Image comics. But it really is the perfect precursor to an Image comic story, because A, it showed up out of nowhere, B, it looks interesting but you're not sure what it's all about, and C, this is most important, it doesn't go anywhere, and none of it is ever explained. So we just move on.
What is that big character that Jim Lee draws? What is him from Wildcats? Is that who it is?
Maul is the big guy from Wildcats.
Okay. Yeah.
The big stone guy from, well, there's a few of them. There is Bad Rock.
Oh, that's who I'm thinking of. Bad Rock from.
Yeah, you're thinking of Bad Rock. He's a Rob Liefeld character from Youngblood.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a weird story. It really, because if you firmly are in the belief that Block is a child going through puberty, this story is creepy and distasteful. This whole storyline is creepy and distasteful because he has been abducted. His face has not appeared on a milk carton anywhere yet, but this is a child that has been abducted by somebody who has ill intent for the character. And that is just disturbing on so many levels. Now, if you go from the aspect of this is a character that is not very smart, doesn't have a high intelligence, who got conned into getting into the back of the van with this weirdo, that's also problematic, but also that would mean that Block is an adult and not a child. And you have pushed onto this theory that Block is a tween at this point.
It's like 13.
Yeah. And so that makes this really disturbing and really not pleasant.
I always read, especially late volume 4 Block, as your classic intelligence 8, wisdom 15 character, where he gets things, but he doesn't necessarily have a way to articulate them.
Yeah. No, I get that part.
And he's that weird kind of, and we've seen him talking about it more and more. I am, the silicon being amongst the humans, and I've tried to fit in, and it's not working for me. And now I have to break out and figure out my own thing.
They're like using him. They're using him as a divining rod to find other silicon-based life forms. Can't they just go back to Block's planet and find all of them there?
No, they're
all gone. Well, are they? Question mark. They could be hiding in the sand beneath They could be hiding in the sand beneath your feet. They could be the sand beneath your feet.
I am the wind.
Yeah, it's really weird and creepy, and I don't like it.
Yeah, it definitely has overtones, and this time I won't disagree with you that the overtones are definitely there. The Satan guy looks to me kind of bug evil-y thing.
Yeah, just like Satan.
Less of a Satan and more like Abigail Artane's uncle Anton. Say that 10 times fast. Ed's uncle.
So I don't know. I know you said you really, really like this issue. This one is probably scoring 1 out of 4 for me as far as the stories that I really liked. The Block one I would probably give a mid-range. I really like the Brainiac one. The fight of the bow hunks was just kind of there, but it just seems like somebody's got too much testosterone in the air. And then, of course, the White Witch one just did not sit right with me at all. So to me, this is maybe scoring 33% out of 100, as far as points would go if I were to assign it to each story. It's fine, but I don't know. I know that there are people who are sitting there going, but Brainiac is my favorite and he left the team. Oh, can't we just find out what's going on with Brainiac? And the answer is no, he left the team. This is the Legion of Superheroes, not the quitters of the Legion of Superheroes.
Oh my God.
And so I think that unless there's a point to telling these stories, there's not a point of telling these stories.
I think one thing, and this is kind of wild and crazy. You know how I said last issue is kind of the beginning of the 5-year later era in a lot of ways? This is a story not about the active member of the Legion, the active superheroes who are a part of a superhero team, but part of a larger, I don't want to say diaspora, but like a bigger
story that's going on. People. Yeah.
And so, we check in with the White Witch. And with 25 members, or actually, I think they're down to like 19 active members, but with a bunch of members in play, it's nice to have even just a quarter of an issue to sit back and go, this is how Block is doing. This is what Dream Girl is thinking about when she's making these dumb decisions. This is where the White Witch has been and why she's all weird. And when we see her again, she'll be even weirder. It's interesting to me to get those in-depth, those quieter moments, those character moments that I really love. The moments where you're just like, Brainiac is like, it'll be better now that I'm back on Kolu. Oh, crap. It's the same.
It's a nuclear bomb.
It's exactly the same on Kolu as it was on Earth. It's almost like the problem is me all along. Oh,
no,
wait,
it can't be. It's the children that are wrong.
Exactly. He learned something in his 300th year as a Brainiac, because that's the equivalent of being about 25. It's one of those things where you do have those these are the moments that you have at college. These are the moments when you're 21, 22, 25, trying to figure out your life and going, I have everything figured out. No, I don't. You don't, and you never will. So sit down, shut up, and let the green Mahatma Gandhi tell you what to do.
Listeners, what did you think of these two issues? Head over to the Major Spoilers Discord server. Join it for free. Absolutely free. In this day and age, how often do you get access to stuff that's free? You don't, right? Everybody wants something. We just want you to have fun. Come over and hang out with other people who are fans of the Legion of Superheroes. Hang out in the Legion Clubhouse channel on our Discord server where people are talking. A lot of really good comments. I'll probably mention them next time that we meet because there's just some really good stuff that people are talking about and more people joining all the time. So what are you waiting for? Get over there to the Major Spoilers Discord server and jump into the Legion Clubhouse channel. Lots of good stuff. And you can share your thoughts about this episode or anything else that's on your mind that is Legion related. And hey, we're going to be back in a couple of weeks as we get ever closer to the 5-year later arc.
The Legion Clubhouse is a production of Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC, and is produced by Steven Schleicher. Your hosts were Matthew Peterson and Steven Schleicher. You can follow Matthew at Mighty King Cobra and Steven at Major Spoilers. You can follow this podcast on Twitter at Legion Clubhouse. If you have questions or comments, send them to podcast@majorspoilers.com. I'm Jason Inman. Until next time, eat it, Grandpa.
This podcast is copyright 2025 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.